Hey everyone, another day, another live. Welcome back to Pixie's Live. I hope everybody has had a great weekend, a great week, and it's your girl Mashe back at it again. And you know the vibes. We are here same time every single day, just here to build community and build Pixie's community. So, yes, guys, let's get right to it. And today we're doing something completely different because the world is moving in ways we don't usually talk about. And these movements affect the cryptocurrency markets in deeper ways than price charts ever show, guys. So, before we even touch a chart, a top gainer, or a blockchain update, I want us to all zoom all the way out past the markets, past the speculation, past the hype, and look at something much bigger. So, the global reset currently unfolding behind the scenes: economic, technological, geological, environmental, ecological, political, and emotional, guys, because after all, the markets don't live in isolation. It breathes the same air the world breathes. And right now, the world is changing, guys. So, let's start from the bigger picture. Something we don't talk about enough. So, basically, the world is entering what many analysts call the multi axis shift. It's a silent restructuring of everything. So, trade networks, resource accesses, global influence, technological power, digital identity, and even the meaning of money itself. So this shift isn't loud. You don't hear it on the news. It's very subtle, like the low rumble before an earthquake, but the market feels it, guys. Crypto feels it. So, these changes can influence anything from how capital moves, which blockchain attract interest, which assets become safe havens, which projects get long-term trust, and, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much more we could discuss, but, those are just a couple of few we, just researched and, looked into, and, one of the biggest forces driving this shift is something we rarely discuss in our lives, guys. And this is energy and digital power. Because obviously, in the future, markets won't just be shaped by money, they'll be shaped by energy, data, and the battle of digital rain, guys. So, that's just how we're going to start off today. And, just grab a seat, relax, and let's just get deeper into this, guys. So let's move on to energy, because that's one of the biggest, most important undercurrents shaping the markets right now. And countries are beginning to treat energy like currency. So not oil, not gas, but the energy itself. So basically, solar capacity, lithium supply, battery infrastructure, rare earth metals, AI grade data centers. These are the new gold bars. And I'm sure you're asking, why does that matter to the markets? It's because basically the markets run on energy, either directly or indirectly. Basically, proof of work chains literally consume energy to create value. Proof of stake chains rely on energy to maintain uptime and sustain validators. Then, exchanges depend on high energy data centers. Then, last but not least, AI powered trading models consume enormous compute power. So, yeah, guys, that's just a couple of things, that run on energy directly or indirectly. And, as global energy gets more political, more scarce, more weaponized, and more valuable, the markets will become entangled in the global energy game, guys. So, yeah, this is a new angle we've never covered, and it's one of the most things that have been overlooked forces behind future bull runs. So yeah, and then here's another new concept, something almost no one ever talks about in the markets, TikTok, YouTube, or an X, and that's basically digital power blocks. And these are not countries, not institutions, not governments. They are basically clusters of digital ecosystems that operate like new age empires, guys. So, yeah, just basically think of AI networks, blockchain ecosystems, supercomputing clusters, cloud infrastructure networks, global payment rails, and then telecom based digital identity systems. And basically, these form invisible digital countries, if I can say. So, for example, Ethereum is a digital nation with its own citizens, laws, and economy. Then you have Solana is a high-speed digital city-state built for rapid commerce. And then there is the blockchain. Binance Chain is like a massive digital commercial empire. Then we have layer two ecosystems, or like the satellite communities orbiting their parent. And basically, none of this existed 10 years ago. And yet, today, these digital nations affect real global economics, guys. And the markets are no longer about price, it's all about digital territory. And that basically brings us to the next major element, which is data becoming the new oil and blockchain becoming the new refinery. So yeah, in the world we're moving into, the most valuable resource isn't gold, oil, or land. It's basically data, guys. And with every transaction, every click, every biometric scan, every location ping, data is extracted, traded, stored, processed, and monetized. And with AI, it's accelerating that at a speed we cannot even comprehend. The world needs technology that can store, verify, and exchange that data without corruption, censorship, or even manipulation, guys. So, yeah, and the traditional web cannot guarantee that, but blockchain can. And this is why, the markets is not just an alternative investment, it's becoming a part of future digital infrastructure of the world. And it's going to be the base layer of data ownership, identity verification, machine to machine transactions, decentralized energy measurement, AI integrity auditing, and last but not least, fraud prevention systems. And these are not memes, these are not hype cycles, these are not pumps or dumps. These are the foundations of the future world economy. So yeah, let's just take a moment and talk about something else that we've never looked into, and that is the structural weakness of the old financial system. So, we always say that the banks are unstable, but let's explain why using these new angles. So, traditional finance is fragile because right now it is built on centralized control, delayed settlement systems, outdated clearing mechanisms, rigid monetary policy, opaque decision making, dependency on political cycles, guys. And these weaknesses are becoming more visible as the world becomes more digital. So, for example, bank outages highlight system fragility, cross border transactions remain slow and expensive. And then, debt levels are rising faster than income growth. Then we have governments are printing money, but productivity is not increasing. Then, last but not least, young people are no longer trusting banks as long-term stores of value. So, meanwhile, in our space, obviously, in our area, the markets offer 24/7 settlement, global access, transparent ledgers, programmable money, fractional ownership, and last but not least, interoperability. Yeah, guys, y'all get what I mean, right? But yeah, these strengths become more attractive as the old systems become more unstable. And to just close off this segment, let's just talk about something surprisingly deep. So, the market is not moved by numbers, but it's more moved by human emotion, which is fear, hope, greed, nostalgia, excitement, faith, last but not least, curiosity. And, behind every candle on a chart is a person, behind every pump is a community, behind every crash is panic, behind every rally, guys, is belief. And in the world we live in now, where everything feels uncertain, people are hungry for something stable, meaningful, communal, and visionary. So that's why identity tokens thrive, guys. That's why narrative tokens thrive. And that's why tokens with law, personality, story, humor, character, like our girl Pixie, will thrive. Not because we are the biggest or because we have the most liquidity, not because we have the highest market cap, but because we have a soul, guys. Our girl Pixie has a soul, and the deeper the world plunges into uncertainty, the more valuable soul becomes. So yeah, that's basically just the beginning of our live, our journey tonight, and you can just imagine how deep we're about to go. Yeah, guys, that's basically, how we're gonna kick things off, and hope everybody's still keeping up, still intact, still, keeping up with me and everything. Just let me know. But yeah, all right, we can just move on to our next segment. Now we move on from the outer edges of global conditions into the living heart of the market ecosystem, the giants, the anchors, the blockchains that shape almost everything, guys. So if our first segment was the sky, part now is basically the ground beneath your feet. So before we zoom in, I want you to imagine something. So just picture yourself standing on the edge of a massive digital city, whether it be skyscrapers made of blocks, networks of light flowing through invisible highways, the hum of computational energy thrumming like electricity under your feet. That city is a blockchain. And the skyscrapers, basically Ethereum, Solana, BNB, Avalanche, and you know, other giants essentially. And they are not just assets, they are not just charts, they are infrastructures, which is basically virtual civilizations. And today we walk through that city with intention. So yeah, guys, Bitcoin today is no longer the rebellious teenager it was in 2012. It's not the misunderstood genius of 2015. Today, Bitcoin is more like a continent, ancient in crypto terms, rooted, slow moving, but powerful enough that when it shifts even slightly, the rest of the market trembles. So yeah, and what's interesting now is the tone of Bitcoin's presence. If it feels like a speculative gamble and more like a digital reserve asset, a kind of decentralized gold 2.0 that carries an entire ideology on its back. So right now we're in a Bitcoin phase I call the quiet expansion. So, not explosive gains, not panic drops, quiet, slow, and extremely intentional. So yeah, something different is happening with Bitcoin's holder demographic, and you rarely hear anyone talk about this. We are no longer living in a world where BTC is dominated by young experimental investors. We now have 40 to 65-year olds investing quietly, and then we have corporate treasuries using BTC as a hedge. Um, we have long-term custodial products for retirement, and last but not least, sovereign level interest forming behind closed doors. So basically, guys, the psychology has shifted. These people don't panic sell. They move gradually, decisively, and they treat Bitcoin like digital land, something you don't trade impulsively but acquire, secure, and hold. So, yeah, guys, I hope everybody's still keeping up, still with me, and still following. I just want to talk about another thing, which is what makes BTC's stability so strange right now. So, basically, here's what's unusual. In an environment overflowing with macro uncertainty, Bitcoin isn't reacting the way it used to. In the past, global fear made basically BTC fall. Today, global fear makes BTC intriguing. So it's become a sort of a psychological safe zone, not because it's stable, but because it's predictable in its unpredictability. So you know what BTC is. It won't be frozen, it won't be censored, it won't be inflated by political whims. In a world of collapsing trust, basically Bitcoin benefits. So yeah, guys, let's just move on to the next thing, and that is basically, our girl Ethereum, which is the ever evolving living organism. So yeah, Ethereum has quietly evolved into something far more complex than a smart contract blockchain. It is basically a digital economy with layers. So layer one is the base world, layer two is the high speed highways, and then we have the roll-ups, so which is the side districts and specialized zones. So Ethereum isn't just being used by anyone, it is being inhibited. That's why Ethereum feels alive, guys. It breathes through gas fees, it sleeps during low traffic, and it surges when builders swarm. Sorry, pardon me. So basically, no other blockchain has this depth of culture, developer energy, and narrative complexity. And you may be asking, why Ethereum is priceless even when the price moves slowly. So Ethereum's market movement is very deceptive, guys, because people say, ETH is boring, ETH isn't pumping, ETH is losing momentum, and yet almost every major innovation in crypto still finds its way back to Ethereum. So if you think about DeFi, that was born on Ethereum, NFTs born on Ethereum, DAO frameworks born on Ethereum, L2 rollups born from Ethereum's limitations and creativity. So the reason ETH looks slow isn't because it's failing, it's because it's slowly but surely maturing. So think of Ethereum like a city with stable property value. Growth is steady, not chaotic. That stability is actually a sign of long term power. So, yeah, guys, let's just, move on. And, we have the Ethereum ecosystem you never hear about. And Here are the aspects of that are rarely discussed that I have looked up and, just done a bit of digging, research on it, and that is Ethereum's academic presence. So, universities are quietly using ETH frameworks in research. And then we have the corporate shadow ecosystem. So, giants like JP Morgan, Visa, and many more are testing stable value networks. And then we have invisible developer clusters. So, silent builders working on infrastructure that won't be public for at least round about 2 to 4 years. And then, last but not least, we have phys- philosophical communities, and that is basically ETH has ideologies, not just technologies. So most of the most cryptos have users and Ethereum has citizens, guys. So yeah. Then next, let's just move on to our girl Solana. And yeah, Solana is not a comeback, but she's not just making a comeback right now. She is in a whole reinvention phase. So yeah, Solana's story is one of the most misunderstood out there in the market. So people think Solana is fast, people think Solana is cheap. No, absolutely not. That is very surface level. Basically, Solana is positioning itself as the blockchain for frictionless digital life, a chain where everything feels instant, lightweight, smooth, like tapping your phone and watching magic unfold, guys. And Solana isn't trying to copy Ethereum, it's trying to become like the iPhone of blockchains, basically beautifully engineered, fluid, and deeply integrated. And another thing people also don't talk about is, Solana's user base is becoming younger, faster, more social, more meme native. And it's where digital artists launch micro collections, gamers trade assets, meme communities experiment, creators test lightweight utilities. So yeah, guys, Solana is essentially becoming the blockchain version of TikTok, which is fast, cultural, experimental, and youthful. And that energy is very hard to basically replicate. And then, we've got our girl BNB Chain, the unstoppable workhorse. So yeah, BNB Chain is the blunt instrument of crypto. It doesn't try to be elegant. It doesn't try to be philosophical. BNB Chain simply does what most people need, which is it's cheap, fast, accessible, familiar, and whether analysts respect it or not, builders and casual traders flock to it. And why? I'm sure you're asking why. So basically, transaction costs are tiny, user onboarding is smooth, tools are simple, everything is compatible with EVM. And sometimes the most successful ecosystem is the one that removes complexity, basically. Sorry. And then, we have our other major chains, our forgotten giants. And, here's a quick truth. Not every major chain is in the spotlight right now, but many are layering the foundation for long-term relevance, guys. So we have Avalanche shifting toward enterprise and institutional layers. We have Cardano focusing on academic grade infrastructure. We have Polkadot evolving into a multi chain coordination system. Then we have Cosmos growing modular ecosystems quietly, behind the scenes. So, yeah, these chains may not be trending on social platforms today, but they are building structures that might matter 2 to 5 years from now, guys. So yeah, let's just move on. Hope everybody's still keeping up, still with me, So yeah, let's just move on, to the next things, to the next thing right now. Major chains are evolving in secret. So, there's something fascinating happening behind the scenes across all major chains, and it's not spoken about publicly enough. So basically, we are witnessing the institutionalization of blockchain architecture. And, blockchains are being studied, audited, standardized, adopted quietly, integrated by industry, and last but not least, tested by government. It's not loud, it's not hyped, but it is real. And in this silent transformation means major chains aren't finished products. They are evolving organisms preparing for real world integration, guys. Tell me, is that not exciting? Yeah, that's really interesting. So exciting just to see how they would just integrate everything and not just move, not just be in the markets, but, you know, into our day to day lives, guys. So, yeah, it's quite fascinating. But yeah, the state of blockchains today, let's just move that and, let's just gently shift into our next segment of the day. So this is where we zoom out from the charts and zoom into the actual blockchains. So the foundations, the ecosystems, the world being built under the price movement. So yeah, guys, because every time we talk about crypto, we focus on price, what's pumping, what's dumping, what's trending. But today, guys, I want to shift the lens a little. I want to talk about how these blockchains are behaving, not just how their tokens are behaving, because sometimes the narrative lives deeper in the developer activity, in the energy of users, in the changes happening inside the chain itself. So, let's obviously begin with our girl Solana, but not the usual storyline, fast or cheap fees, not the memes, not the volume surges. You know, um, let's just talk about how Solana's architecture is maturing. So right now, Solana is experiencing something extremely interesting, and it's entering what the analysts call a stability phase. So this means fewer outages, more predictable block times, more consistent validator behavior, improved load balancing, more projects building long-term infrastructure. So yeah, and what's fascinating is that the chains that survive in the long-term run, are the chains that outgrow their chaos, the early turbulence, the early network strain, and Solana, this loud, high speed cultural chain, is becoming more grown, more orderly, more operationally stable. And this is important because when a chain stabilizes, capital capital feels safe, builders feel encouraged, and users feel comfortable. The volatility just stays in price, but the chain's heartbeat becomes steady. So yeah, guys, let's just shift to, Ethereum's quiet shift that no one talks about. Today, instead of discussing gas fees or layer two scaling, I want to talk about how Ethereum is becoming the settlement layer of the internet, not the playground. Meaning, layer twos are becoming the playground. Ethereum is becoming the courthouse, the foundation, and the final stamp of truth. Yeah, and this is a huge shift in identity, and the world hasn't fully digested what that means. It means Ethereum doesn't doesn't need to compete on speed anymore. It doesn't need to match Solana or Avalanche in, throughput. Its role is different. So Ethereum is shaping itself to be the chain where final settlement happens, the most secure proofs get validated, high value transactions get anchored, data is preserved at the highest trust layer. This is not exciting for retail, it's not flashy, but it's incredibly important. It basically positions Ethereum as the foundation of the rest of the ecosystem, where the ecosystem leans on it, basically. So yeah, guys, let's just talk about other chains that quietly growing, the Say network, where a chain designed for high-speed order books. It's attracting algorithmic trading projects. So something that normally only lived on centralized exchanges. And then yeah, we have Celestia, not a typical chain. It's modular. It lets other chains borrow its data availability layer, and this is extremely new in the blockchain world. And then we have Mantle, which is slowly growing in TVL, especially after integrating with major Ethereum projects. And it's becoming a home for liquidity that prefers low fees without leaving the ETH ecosystem. So yeah, guys, now as we explore all these chains, all these narratives, all these movements, I want to gently bring our girl Pixie. We have to include her in the mix, not as a comparison, not to compete, but simply to position her inside the evolving ecosystem, because Pixie is built in a world where identity matters, story matters, community matters, culture shapes value, guys. So, yeah, blockchains provide the infrastructure, but projects like Pixie provide culture. And culture is powerful, culture is sticky, culture is emotional, and that's what makes Pixie special. She isn't just a token, she's a character in a market searching for meaning beyond the charts. And we'll explore this deeper in a few, you know. So yeah, guys, let's continue. Let's basically just continue with, we'll get back to our girl Pixie. Don't you guys worry about it, So yeah, let's just move on to something else that I wanted to talk about, which is cross-chain momentum and the fragmentation problem. So right now, one of the biggest stories in crypto, and strangely one that doesn't make headlines, is the same way hype projects do. Basically is fragmentation. Every blockchain is fast and in its own bubble. Every chain has its own messaging style, its own smart contract quirks, its own transaction finality rules, its own census dance, and that's powerful, but it creates walls, it creates separation. It makes the crypto world feel like a collection of islands instead of one functional connected world as a whole. And over the last few months, something interesting has been happening quietly, which is cross-chain protocols have been growing faster than many layer ones. And that's not in price, not in hype, but in adoption by developers, wallets, and analytics platforms. So, let's talk specifics. And again, this is, something we haven't really dove into like in the previous lives. So right now, there are a few major players making big moves, guys. So With layer zero is becoming the default messaging protocol for cross chain transfers. It doesn't move tokens, it moves information. And in a multi chain world, information is real currency. So, developers love it because it gives them the ability to deploy across 20, 30, 40 chains without rewriting their entire code base. And that's very huge, guys. So, yeah, and then we have Wormhole. So, Wormhole has been surprising people. After the token launch, people thought hype would fade, but instead, real institutional players started integrating with it. It's especially strong in Solana ecosystems and multi chain gaming. And then we have Synapse. So Synapse has quietly become the liquidity bridge. If layer zero moves information, then Synapse moves value. And liquidity is everything when chains try to talk to each other. And then we have XLR. So XLR focuses on general purpose interoperability. So their big play is security. They want cross chain messaging to be as secure as native chain transactions. So they're pushing the idea that cross chain communication should feel invisible to the user. So these are not hype names right now, which is exactly why they're important. Sometimes the most transformative parts of crypto are the ones that don't pump. They just work. They get to work, basically get into it. So yeah, and then let's touch on something that's uncomfortable but necessary, which is cross-chain security. So over the last 2 years, bridges have been the prime targets of hackers. We've seen Ronin bridge exploit, the Harmony bridge exploit, the Nomad bridge exploit, multiple vulnerabilities in legacy messaging systems, guys. So basically, that means billions lost, gone. And why that is? That's because bridges become the vaults of crypto. If you can break the vault, you can steal everything inside. But here's what's changing now. Get this. Get this. Bridges are finally entering their mature phase. So audits are getting more aggressive, security layers are getting more redundant. Developers are building with an assumption that attackers are always 5 steps ahead. This is good because as crypto becomes more multi chain, security cannot be optional, guys. So yeah, and why this matters for the future of meme coins, basically let's connect this back to the broader market and yeah, basically to our girl Pixie. So meme coins used to live in isolated ecosystems. Solana memes stayed on Solana, Ethereum memes stayed on Ethereum, BSC memes never left Binance Smart Chain. But now, the new wave of meme coins, the ones with actual culture, community, and identity, are spreading across networks. And here's the truth, the next big meme coin will be across. Sorry, guys. Let me just get my words together. Let me try that again. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the next big meme coin boom will be cross chain. Yeah. And it won't be locked into one ecosystem. It won't depend on one chain's gas fees or one chain's culture. It will flow through multiple ecosystems, reach different communities, tap into different liquidity zones. And that is where Pixie's design philosophy quietly shines. Pixie is not tied to one specific tribe. Pixie is not built On top of maximalism culture, Pixie is symbolic, thematic, and adaptable. As cross chain infrastructure matures, projects with strong identity and universal appeal tend to travel the furthest. Yeah, guys, and Pixie fits that future perfectly. A character driven project that can sit naturally in multiple ecosystems as the space becomes more interconnected. So, yeah, guys, all right, let's settle back in for a moment. We've talked about, the narratives and the shifts, but, now I want us to zoom out again, but in a different way, a deeper way, a quieter way, and in a way that isn't rushed. I hope you guys are still keeping up, still on it, and yeah, because what's happening underneath the surface of the crypto market right now is actually far more interesting than what sits on the charts. So yeah, guys, let's get right into it. Basically, let's just talk about the unusual market signals right now that we've been seeing. Um, something more interesting, something that we haven't really gotten into it. So, basically, the unusual signals in the market right now. So, signals that most people overlook because they are focused on price. So, for example, stable coin inflows are rising even while Bitcoin's price is flat. Gas costs across multiple chains have dropped sharply. Developer activity is up, even though retail attention is down. And then cross chain bridges are processing more volume than early 2024. Then, last but not least, dormant wallets from older cycles are quietly reactivating again. And I'm sure you're asking, what does that mean? What does it symbolize? It just means, it means the people who understand the market the deepest are planting seeds right now. So it means, liquidity is building like water behind a dam. It means the market is in that strange moment where, the charts look asleep, but the infrastructure, the foundation is waking up. And this is one of the most powerful signals in crypto. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. I hope everybody's still on par, still keeping up. If you guys have seen any unusual signals, do let us know in the comments below, and keep everybody in the community up to date, and just on par. So something else we need to understand today, which is the world outside the market is creating silent pressure and silent opportunity. So basically, just a couple of global news and its invisible impact. So here's a couple of things that I've just read up, what's happening out there. So yeah, just a few examples of what I've read. AI spending is exploding right now, and that drains liquidity from speculative markets. Countries are experimenting with digital identity and blockchain rails. Another thing that I've read up is that payment giants are testing crypto rails quietly without making noise. And then energy markets are tightening, which is affecting mining economics indirectly. And then last but not least, we have tech layoffs are pushing more developers into Web3 because it's flexible work. So yeah, none of these hit charts directly, but all of these shape the mindset of the people who build the future. When builders feel pressure, they innovate. And when institutions test blockchain under the radar, it means adoption is shifting from hype to infrastructure and the early stages of building a foundation of basically integration. So yeah, and that is where long-term projects thrive, guys. Now, in the middle of this shifting landscape, where does our girl Pixie sit? I always describe Pixie as more than just a meme coin. She is a character, she is a brand, she is a symbol of lightness in a heavy market. She fits into this environment because the market is moving forward toward identity, story, community symbolism, emotional narrative, and personality driven tokens. And Pixie stands at the intersection of fun and identity. And in times like these, tokens with personality often outlast tokens with no soul. So yeah, guys, Pixie goes beyond the charts itself. She is a household character. And the beautiful part is that she does not need to force herself into the spotlight. She exists in her own lane, a small light in a market that sometimes feels very, very serious and, very uptight, where there's a lot at stake. And, basically, that's exactly what a community needs, guys, So, yeah, I hope everybody is still keeping up, still with me, still alive, still awake. Let's just take a breath. And, as we move towards the end of today's live, I want us to shift once more into something reflective, something about the future, the patterns, the, possible pathways, the place where all of this is heading, because markets are numbers, but, beyond that, crypto is also imagination. And the projects that survive the longest are the ones that understand both sides. So, yeah, guys, let's just, we're heading into the closing of this live. Yeah, we've spoken a lot today. We've spoken about many things today: market narratives, shifts, movements, opportunities, warnings, and all the subtle signals hidden beneath the surface. So, as we're moving into, the end, I want to take everything we've spoken about, which is the charts, the news, the energy of the market, and tie it together into something meaningful. So, something forward looking, something that helps you walk away from this with clarity, calm, zen, and direction. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Basically, our final moments together for today. So, in the market, basically, the loudest stories are not always the most important ones. Right now, the most important stories are usually the quiet signals, the things happening beneath the noise. Right now, the market is whispering three things. Firstly, liquidity is shifting, not disappearing. Money is not leaving the market, it's basically repositioning. It's testing new sectors, waiting for confirmation, and hunting for asymmetric opportunities. Secondly, builders haven't slowed down, guys. So even on quiet days, development activity on major blockchains is rising. So teams are shipping, ecosystems are expanding, new standards are being experimented with across chains. And when the market looks still, creation accelerates behind the curtain. Then, thirdly, last but not least, the cycle is forming its base layer. So, no bull market erupts from chaos, it emerges from quiet accumulation, hesitation, and the rebuilding of conviction, guys. And right now, we're in the early psychological phase where people are watching more than acting. And these whispers matter because they tell you where the next wave might originate long before the world catches on. So, yeah, as we approach a new cycle, the smartest mindset is not fear and it's not hype right now. It's basically observation because this stage is the in between stage where everything forms. So, narratives, winners and losers, early momentum, undervalued builders, repriced assets, fresh ecosystems, new communities, experimental ideas, guys. And it's also where identity driven tokens start planting their roots. The ones with story, with character, with symbolism, with a theme. And that's why we mention our girl Pixie, not as a push, not as pressure, but as an example of a project growing in the same soil where many successful meme driven ecosystems once began. And they began quietly, patiently, during the watch phase that we're in right now and not the explosive phase. And Pixie fits into this moment because she's not trying to overpower the market. She's basically growing with it. And in crypto, timing and positioning is everything. So yeah, when we look forward, we're not just predicting prices, we're predicting behavior. And behavior tells us something important, guys. It basically tells us investors are preparing for movement, developers are preparing for a movement, even the communities across chains are shifting into a more anticipatory energy. Yeah, guys, crypto is expanding again, slowly but undeniably. And, whether it's Bitcoin stabilizing, layer two ecosystems evolving, cross chain technologies maturing, or a new narrative driven tokens like Pixie carving out identity, the path ahead is widening. This next cycle won't just be about gains, it will be about meaning. Which projects stand for something, which ecosystems communicate, which communities grow with imagination and not just speculation. And that's the part that I want you to carry with you. Crypto rewards those who pay attention before the crowd arrives. So, guys, observe and pay attention. So, as we close off today, take a moment to breathe, let everything settle in. We've spoken about a lot today. And, with that being said, in that picture, you've seen how every storyline, big or small, plays a role in shaping the whole ecosystem. From layer one chains, layer two scaling, Bitcoin, AI tokens, infrastructure, meme cultures, identity communities. And yes, even like our girl Pixie, the smaller seedlings that one day will grow branches. Basically, we will grow branches no one expected. And yeah, Pixie to the moon, of course, guys. Pixie to the moon. We're here to grow. We are here to invest. We are here to evolve. And we can only do that if we stand together in community. So, yeah, guys, as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me space to these deep dive reflections. And thank you for showing up for yourself by staying informed, curious and open minded. Today has been great. I always love being here and engaging with the community. So yeah, guys, today has been great. I hope you guys have a good day and are preparing for the week ahead. And as always, I'll see you again tomorrow. Another day, another moment to explore the world of crypto together. And until then, guys, take care, stay grounded, and keep observing, keep paying attention. And yeah, it's your girl Mashe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.